To close out today, we are going to take a deeper look at Southeast Asia's venture climate. The previously surging startup scene is now navigating a prolonged slowdown, with late-stage funding especially hard to come by. To help unpack what's behind this freeze, we're going to explore how startups across the region can reignite growth and resilience in today's tougher landscape. Please welcome Temasek Managing Director, Artificial Intelligence Strategy and Solutions, Renyong Singh, Granite Asia Senior Managing Partner, Jishun Fu, AC Ventures Managing Partner, Helen Wong, Rise Labs founder and CEO, Matthew Graham, and Fortune's Andrew Nuska.
Hello, everybody. We've got a wonderful session for you. Hello, hello. Thank you for being with us. So, how many, well, actually, let me take a step back. Who in here is feeling optimistic about the state of tech startups in Southeast Asia right now? Raise your hand.
All right.
All right, you see them? Okay. Who's feeling maybe a little more pessimistic about the state of tech startups? Come on, be honest. All right, we got a good mix. Who in here is really looking forward to having a drink after this session?
Everyone.
Yeah. Not enough hands, I think. All right, folks. So we've got a state of our audience. Now let's lay out the state of things. Helen, I'm going to start with you. It's been said that we're in a venture winter right now. Are we still in the depths of winter? Are we starting to see green shoots? What is the state of venture right now in Southeast Asia?
Sure. Well, I think that we have to look at the different cycle, right? Venture capital comes and goes in cycles. One is the impact of the interest rate cycle. And so we saw that with the steepest hike of interest rates, that the funding basically dried up dramatically. As people look for more, profitable companies, steady cash flows rather than, cash burning tech companies, right? And the other part of the cycle, I would say, is the tech cycle, which is basically, that the mobile internet had reached high levels of penetration. And so there's not so much interest on this investing in this theme anymore. So we can see a lot of funding went into fintech and e-commerce that is kind of dried up as well. But I would say there's still green shoots of the winter coming to us and the end, because you do see that the best companies are still able to raise funding. We have a company that was in the solar space, that's a commercial and industrial rooftop solar company, the largest in Indonesia. They raised about 55 million last year. And we actually have another company, it's still undergoing the fundraising right now, so I won't say which one, but it's getting a 50 million term sheet as well, financing round. So it's very exciting. It's getting a term sheet from a very reputable tech company. So I would say that there are green shoots, because you do see some of the the winners of the last wave, and as well as you see some new themes emerging. For example, in climate and sustainability, as well as AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yes, this AI thing. It's a big thing. I think we're going to talk about it at this event. Maddie, what are you telling founders in the region right now? Where's their head at?
Sure. So I think the green shoots comment is pretty on point, but from our perspective, if things, we don't really like to necessarily invest more when everything's at a fever pitch. If the best in class founders are able to get funded and there's not necessarily a tremendous amount of capital sloshing around above and beyond that, that seems like a fairly hospitable environment for us. But I think most importantly, we would love to see, there's just above and beyond trying to be the 19th LLM, there's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of much more specific, highly differentiated visions that could potentially be billion-dollar companies. And I think much of that space is as yet unexplored. So we would love to see much more consumer-facing apps that I think everyone's a little afraid that tomorrow OpenAI might just kill them, but then to some extent that is going to end up being true, but the opportunities are tremendous. We'd love to see much more of a focus on that kind of consumer-facing opportunity.
Yeah. Jishan, the thing about winters, for lack of a better description, is that they often separate the, smart money from the not so smart money, yeah? Is that what you've seen in the last couple of years? Does it feel like we're back to a period of good fundamentals?
I think I share some of the comments from Helen, and we are in a different environment today,
yes.
Obviously. But I think very importantly, if you think about the tech cycle, we are also looking at the different phases of adoption. Just about a year ago, we were mostly talking about large language model, foundation model, and a lot of that is still happening in the US. I'm talking about AI, right? And we are seeing some upstarts in China getting the funding, getting the momentum, but hardly you see any in this part of the world, and you see Europe as well with Mistral and so on. So, but I mean, the DeepSeek moment just a couple of months ago happened, and that democratizes a lot of the foundation, and now there's more open source movement, and you are seeing a series of applications coming on. And so that adoption is beginning to see more and more. We see that in China. I spend half my time in China. We see that in the US. We're gradually seeing that in this part of the world. And we are also seeing talent flow from different parts of the world, from China particularly to Singapore, to Southeast Asia. So I think we need to have a confluence of talent, market adoption, and then the capital will crystallize some of these ideas and propel it forward. So we are very patient. Having been in this business for 25 years, we have seen the internet bubble burst, and actually we didn't really see much out of Southeast Asia during the internet days, but we did see mobile internet, which came a bit later. We first invested in Grab, for example, back in 2014. But the mobile wave actually started much earlier in the US and in China. And that wave has to happen, the technology adoption has to happen, and then some of these ideas will emerge. So, to your point, I think for us, we want to be patient. We want to see the confluence of talent and market adoption, and then we'll start investing.
Yeah, well said. Ren, Temasek is a little bit different than the other organizations on stage here. How are you looking at navigating this landscape? How are you thinking about timelines, deal structures, and so forth?
Yeah, so firstly, I agree with what Yushin has said. It's basically an adoption curve over time, and opportunities emerge over time. So of course at Temasek, we look at AI in three basic areas that we are interested in. First, scale AI winners. Secondly, emerging AI innovators, the digital disruptors or AI disruptors. And thirdly, AI factories. So of course, we invest across the whole stack, from infrastructure all the way to applications. When the large language models first emerged, we had the view that, like what Yushin mentioned as well, in 1 to 2 years, a lot more AI applications will emerge, and indeed that's what's happening right now. And then from that will infer the tech stack and the platform between that will support the application, and then you can then invest downwards from there. So on the AI native side, it's been really quite interesting. I think since last year when you saw the release of the O3 model, I call this the age of reasoning. Things have really exploded. The rate of innovation is amazing. Because we invest globally, so I have the good fortune of seeing this across the globe, and we invest in AI specialist funds out of the US as well as globally, and also generalist funds with AI expertise. People are going earlier and earlier. We see students, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, creating AI applications with millions of revenue. This has not really happened before, which is really an exciting time to sort of really roll out the sleeves and try out all these products and also learn how to do this natively. I call this the AI product arc, right? And I think it's really quite an exciting time, and waiting to see how that could also percolate across the globe. In Southeast Asia, of course, as you saw earlier in what Russell had shared, token cost is dropping. So one of my own personal theses is, as token costs drop, one day it will equal to labor cost. in some of the Southeast Asian regions. And from that, perhaps a lot more new use cases and applications start to emerge, thereby creating another wave of potential AI applications that will be created in this region.
Yeah. You know, Jishan, I was thinking about what you said. You said the DeepSeek moment, so, you know, cheers, the first one on the session to say that. And I was thinking, isn't it remarkable that it was only just a few months ago? That feels like years ago now in AI, because that's how things go, you know. It's remarkable. Helen, I want to come back to you. I'm thinking a lot about the folks in this room who are not from Southeast Asia who came in for this event. How should they be thinking about this region? The opportunities, misunderstandings, how should they be thinking about Southeast Asia as a venture market?
Interesting. I think Southeast Asia has always been an overlooked region because, you know, China captured most of the attention in the past 2 decades, I would say. And then right now, India is also capturing some of the limelight. But if you look at, you know, Southeast Asia, actually the GDP is about the same as India, and we have 650 million people. So it's a large enough population and very digitally savvy. So there's a lot of good things going for Southeast Asia, good demographics as well, you know, versus China, which has a declining population. I think where you want to be careful when you invest is that this is not a very mature ecosystem, unlike China, right? Where you have entrepreneurs that have gone through intense competition, they're on their 3rd startups. Here it's still a bit more raw. And so I think one thing that, you know, Jishun did touch on is that the inflow of foreign talent, I think it's a very big plus to this region. I think part of the China Plus One strategy as well, forcing a lot of, you know, supply chains to move to Southeast Asia is also a very positive driver for growth in this region.
Are we learning, to follow up on that, are we learning things from mature ecosystems? China's one, the United States is another, you know, as we try to kind of grow the pie here?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say that a lot of the founders, even in Southeast Asia, have looked to, you know, more mature ecosystems, very experienced founders in China, also India. I think, you know, because Southeast Asia is kind of in the middle, right? If you think about the GDP per capita, the growth potential of this region, you know, China is a lot more developed, a lot moving more to, I think, moving more to deep tech, more Silicon Valley style sort of investing. And whereas, you know, we are kind of in the middle. You know, India maybe has a different dynamics, but we can see that, you know, some of the more, I would say, traditional sectors like consumer, retail is very nuts and bolts, but it's actually doing very well in this part of the world, right? We had Mr. DIY, a major IPO last year, and it was like 3 billion, you know, 30 times PE, so very attractive IPO. And that's like what works for this part of the world. For those who don't know, Mr. DIY is like a home and living retailer with like 1,000 stores in Indonesia alone. So it's one of these examples that, you know, you can have a good, you know, exit outcome, a good IPO in this part of the world.
Yeah, thank you. Maddie, we've talked a little bit about it already, but which categories are you bullish about? Which are you bearish about, given the conditions in the region?
So in general, what I'm most bullish and bearish about, I'm most bearish about the fact that we have billion-dollar rounds for companies that I think you would be hard-pressed to convince me have a vision that's super differentiated from OpenAI. That's what I'm most bearish about. What I'm most bullish about is I could throw a paper airplane out into the audience and have 10 ideas that people want built yesterday, and they're asking themselves, I can't believe someone hasn't built health and fitness AI hooked up to my smartwatch and I can learn how to, you know, hack my body, whatever it is. I see these 10 times a day on Twitter from talking to people wherever, where they're saying, why hasn't anyone built this yet? I don't get it. That's what I'm most bullish about. The opportunities still are tremendous.
Yeah. Jishin, do you feel differently?
Well, I think here we have to look at solving the different parts of the AI tech stack in my mind.
Right.
I think we all think about the compute, we think about the applications, but there's a lot around it. Even within the compute, you need optical transceivers. And most of the optical transceivers is manufactured in Asia, and Thailand, in China. And we are going from 800G to 1.6 tera, and going beyond. So there's still innovation needed over and beyond, I'm trying to say, the whole tech stack. Energy infrastructure is very important. If you want to propel AI, you need more energy. How are we going to solve that problem? So, I mean, from an investor point of view, I'm trying to figure out how do you solve the problem that is go long and across the tech stack. I do agree that there's still a lot of opportunities at the application layer that we have to solve for over time. I think that's the intelligence part of it. But I do think that this part of the world, we have to look across the tech stack to solve the overall
Actually, just to chime in here, I completely agree. You know, for us, we look at it from two perspectives. So first, you try to invest against bottlenecks. I think exactly what you're saying. Which part of the bottlenecks are we seeing as the technology becomes cheaper and cheaper? So for example, in the world of agentic AI, you need containerization, right, to build virtual machines for agents to work. Well, that's not really a solved problem. Secondly, persistent memory. Persistent memory is also not a solved problem. Also, persistent identity across various agents is also not a solved problem as well. So whenever startups come to us with problems like that, if they're addressing a bottleneck we think would be very unique, I think this is something really good to look at. And we could have a discussion around this for hours.
On and on and on. Yeah. So there's just so many of these limiting factors that we sometimes do not think about.
Right.
But as an investor, you have to solve the different parts of the tech stack puzzle in order for you to propel, the eventual all-out applications.
Yeah.
But secondly, to what Matt said, a good product may not be a good business. A good business may not be a good investment. So we always try to remind ourselves of this fact. Even if we see a good breakout product, is the revenue going to be persistent? What is the business model? I mean, business models that I like is converting service to a software. I mean, that's going to be a major market change we're going to see. Today, if we see agentic commerce roll out, are we going to see a new agent web, right? Because obviously the way agents do agentic search is different from search optimization. What does that do to the OTA industry, for example? And I feel that actually Southeast Asia has a chance to leapfrog, just like it did in the digital transformation era as well.
Yeah. I mean, the other point I maybe want to add is that, although we may not see as many AI startups as in, say, in China, but we do encourage all of our portfolio companies to use the AI tools that are available, right? I mean, that's really something that is very easy to do, and we have a lot of, the big tech giants out here who are offering all kinds of services to help us, to enable us. So I just had an email from Grok, right, wanting to help demonstrate what they can do for our portfolio companies. So I think that is really something I'm encouraging all our portfolio companies to do. Maybe start with a certain function that you think is not mission critical, like for example HR. Can you automate your hiring process, your application process, and then move to other functions within the organization.
That's right. That's right. I want to come to the audience for questions in just a moment, but Helen, I want to follow up with one more. So we were just talking about restrictions and limitations, whether you perceive them as that or just opportunities. What is one thing, in your opinion, that could supercharge the market in this region?
I think it's really about the organizational inertia. Even within, say, to my colleagues, right? When I ask them, why don't you try to use AI to make your workflow more easier and give you higher productivity? The first question I got was, would this replace my job, And I think it's a very real fear, and that might be something that, makes a lot of people hesitate. Of course, if you talk to, corporates, and as a VC, I get very excited by new technology, right? But then when I, go to some of these sessions, where you talk to those corporate clients, and you hear, they are very, some are very scared of the, security implications, and some are just very hestant, saying that, wow, my company is not even very familiar with the mobile internet ad tech, that you can use, and you're throwing something new at us again. We are just a car company. We just sell cars. And so it's quite mind-blowing when you hear things like that. Yeah, so you just have to understand, how they think. Of course, there's a lot of interoperability, legacy systems, integrations with their existing systems that, was mentioned before as well. I think these are all things that really you have to bear in mind to have an end-to-end solution for your client.
Yeah.
Just to add a little bit to what Helen said, so earlier in the morning I had a meeting with the Shopback founder, Henry, and we're just talking about what's next with agentic AI. And the same question, they are doing well. It's a Temasek company, 100 million run rate revenue and et cetera. But the reality is that he's trying to say, how do I embrace AI? I say the biggest limitation is the strength that you have is everything that you have built, but the limitation you have is also everything you have built. Because it's the legacy that's going to hold you back as to how you adopt AI. Because you always think in the old framework versus being AI native. And what we're going to see is in the next couple of years, you're going to see AI native startups. And they're going to try to disrupt you if you don't run ahead of the curve. So these are challenges that a lot of the traditional businesses today, the tech companies, even the Grab and all, are becoming more traditional in the face of AI.
Yeah, fascinating. All right, let's come to the audience. Yes, right, just wait for the microphone. It's coming to you, but we'll take it right up here in the front. Thank you. And when you get it, your name and who you're with, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deepak. I'm building a technology company in a space called cultural intelligence to help companies understand the globalization process and understand different countries and cultures. I'm very curious with one of the things with AI technology is also the ability of how it kind of flattens the world. Many times when we talk about Southeast Asia and the region, there is an implicit assumption that what is being created here is for the region. But I'm curious if this technology is also enabling people in the region to create for the world, and if there are any examples of that. Anybody can answer.
I think Superbase is a good example, actually. It was built from here and it's scaled globally.
Say that again, sorry?
Superbase.
Superbase.
Is people not well known within the tech stack, but from Singapore.
Yeah.
They started out in Singapore, and I think your question is also centered around cultural. This also goes back to my conversation with the Shopback founder. We are also investing in a company called Xiaohongshu in China, which is rate node and very, very popular. And the question was, why is there not a rate node in this part of the world, right? And the point here is that the content creation, because China is a huge market, 1.4 billion, you have this network effect, and the network effect of the content is humongous, and so is. Whereas, how do you create the right content for this part of the world? But with AI, a lot of these bridges can be broken. I mean, you can change the personality, you can change the language. AI is actually going to create more personalized content for the different types of users. So I do believe that with AI, you're going to break down a lot more of the cultural and geography barriers, and so the question is, can you do it and do it accurately, minimum hallucination and all that other stuff that we have to deal with. But I do believe that AI actually will be reducing a lot of the barriers to entry.
It also depends where your customers are. If it's a platform and tooling space, then your customers are by definition global because the developer community is global. But then if you look at like maybe knowledge worker space, then obviously that's geographically constrained and also bounded by regulations. Tax accounting in the US will be quite different from those in Singapore. So I think it kind of depends, but the opportunity is out there.
There we go. Thank you for your question. Maddie, I'm going to end with you. For the founders in the audience here and on the stream, what would you say to them if they are working on an AI startup here? What should they be thinking about? Where should their head be at? Close us out, please.
Sure, I think the most important thing is to find your first cohort of people that existentially need your product to the point where they absolutely have to have it yesterday. They want to use it every day. They want to not only pay for it, but they want to tell everyone about it. If you can find 5, 7 of those people, you can find 80, 90. If you can find 90 of them, you can find 10,000 of them. The problem is many companies, they try to find their first 1 billion users before they find their first 3. Focus on finding your superfans.
And stop pitching him the next OpenAI. Folks, a round of applause. Thank you so much.